Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star Sports Podcast. I'm Blair Kirchhoff. We are joined by my esteemed colleagues, Vahe, Gregorian, Sam McDowell, and Jesse Newell. We're here to talk Chiefs and their 26-25 victory over the Cincinnati Bengals and look ahead to the Sunday night football game against the Atlanta Falcons. Every week, Jesse Newell predicts the final score of Chiefs games, and I'm going to tell you how far off he was this past week. He projected a 21-20 Chiefs victory. Jesse, how could you be so far off on your prediction?
Sorry, guys. I'll do better next week. I thought the wind might affect some field goals. The field goal kickers were too good in this particular game. But no, I mean, Sam will tell you about this. The week one overreaction remains undefeated as sort of a betting thing. And this is what happened in this Chiefs-Bengals game, is that everyone overreacted to the Bengals going against the Patriots and losing a game they shouldn't have lost. And everyone says, oh, that's a bad team, instead of saying, hey, that's a bad week. And you saw this in the NFL. I saw some stat out there that I think every team that was favored by 6 or more points, none of those teams covered. So we saw this. The NFL is too close of margin when it comes to talent to have these teams, be that separated from each other. And so we saw that with the Chiefs this week. They're able to get to 2-0. I'm sure they're very happy to get to 2-0 with these two particular games. But the Bengals were not as bad as they looked week one, and the Chiefs, frankly, were not as good as they looked week one either. So very fortunate to come out with a win in this game.
Tell you what, we've got a lot to talk about with this Bengals game, and a lot of individuals too. We got to get to Isiah Pacheco and Kingsley Suamataia, Chris Jones, Shamari Connor, just so many individuals who stood out for one reason or another in this game. But I want to take a larger view and explore a little bit why the Chiefs ended up winning a game in which Patrick Mahomes threw 2 interceptions, had his worst passing yards game for which he played a full game. It was 151 passing yards. The Chiefs lost the turnover ratio -2. It wasn't a pretty game at all. Outgained by the Bengals, which means they've been outgained in total yards for 2 straight games, and yet they found a way to win it. Is there concern that they're playing this way as we look ahead, or Sam, is it just a matter of this is a team that knows how to finish, finds a way to win, and shouldn't worry about the style points with the Chiefs, but because they'll get there at the end for you.
Well, I think top of line here is they've played 2 really good football teams. I mean, these are the 2 teams that they've hosted in the last 2 AFC Championship games, and it is a results-based business at the end of the day. I mean, my concern is some of the things you mentioned, Blair. I mean, Kingsley Suamataia, we still know he's going to play left tackle this week. The Chiefs do have some long-lasting things that they're going to have to solve injury-wise and performance-wise. But the result, I mean, and Vahe captured this well in his post-game column, like, this team historically has found ways to win. Last year, they did not. And Patrick Mahomes said that after the game. He said, this is a game in years past we typically would lose. It took them, they only had 1 fourth quarter comeback all last season. And that was against the Bengals. And that 4th quarter comeback is an asterisk by it because they started the drive at the 5-yard line in the first play of the 4th quarter, trailing by 2, and they kicked a field goal. That was their 4th quarter comeback. They came back twice in the second half in this game. They were losing at halftime, losing in the 4th quarter, and come back and win the game. So that is part of the moxie of their postseason runs. All of their postseason runs are defined that way. We just saw it absent from the regular season a year ago. And so there absolutely is some positives to take away. And like I said, Vahe, you got into that in your post-game column.
I would just add that, for a long time, and I think we can still totally make this case, the things that have happened in the first couple of games are definitely indicators of vulnerability, right? I mean, but for a couple very pivotal moments and quirky plays, they lose both games. But I think by now, the overall track record, the cumulative feeling is whatever doesn't kill them just makes them stronger in the end. I mean, they just somehow have this thing that I feel like the baton has been passed on to a new season of that, even as they're forming a new identity. Now, none of that makes them, bulletproof or whatever term you'd use. I mean, they have things to fix. Obviously, Sam and you've been on this for a couple of weeks, and you guys, Jesse and Blair, especially all through your time at camp, you understood and still understand now more than ever that Kingsley that's a thing, and left tackle is a thing. So they're going to have to fix some things. I think it's interesting to ponder, especially as they're dealing with the running back situation. It is interesting to ponder what sort of immediate challenges they have in this roster compared to what those challenges look like with rosters of years past at this time of year. I don't know if it's something to elaborate on, but I just find it interesting to think about these challenges in terms of a year-to-year context.
Well, what's interesting about their challenges now, Vahe, is we all identified them in camp. We all said that they don't have enough depth at running back, and they've got a running back who runs the ball really hard, and therefore he's more susceptible to injury. Now, this week, a major topic is what are they going to do at running back? We all talked about left tackle, and I looked up the stats on the risk of going into a season with a rookie left tackle, that Super Bowl champions do not have rookie left tackles. This was a risk that the Chiefs were taking. And so it's not that this should just be sprung upon them as a shock that they're encountering these issues this week. These are things we talked about in training camp. Now, it is part of the vulnerability of every team that pays a quarterback more than $50 million. Like, these are just part of the job consequences that you have when you have really good players. When you pay Chris Jones $30 million, when you pay Patrick Mahomes $50 million, like, you're going to have vulnerabilities, but these are ones that we did identify over the course of training camp.
Yeah, this is the danger of stars and scrubs, Sam, and nobody does stars and scrubs more than the Chiefs. They pay their big stars and they bank on themselves being able to draft and backfill these positions with young players. And so, when a Kingsley has a difficult game, that really puts them behind the 8 ball right now. And, Isiah Pacheco is great energy-wise. Obviously, his teammates love him. He runs the ball hard. If you're the Chiefs, I think you have to not give resources to that position. I mean, that's just a consequence of how you're dealing with things and paying your defensive tackle and paying your tight end and paying your quarterback. I mean, you can't spend everywhere. And analytically, statistically, whatever you want to say, running back's one of those positions. The problem they face now is that, we always go back to the T word with the Chiefs, which is trust. We talked about Nico Remigio had a good camp, and then he fumbled in the preseason, and he lost the team's trust. Well, Carson Steele had a great camp, and Matt Nagy talked about how they trust him. He's always in the right spot. He gets a couple carries, and he fumbles, and now they can't trust him. So they have a trust issue there, to the point where now they're bringing in potentially Kareem Hunt to visit, who they should have the ultimate trust issue with, because he wouldn't even tell the truth to the team the last time he was on the roster. So, yeah, there are some dangers there, but I think the biggest danger right now is we talked about this team not having enough depth, potentially going into the season. They're starting to have a few injuries pop up, but there are some things popping up now, even without them having a lot of injuries, that is going to test what they can do offensively and defensively because of the pieces they have in place right now. So we'll see how that all turns out. But some of this is basically what you get with this roster and what you get with paying all your stars. You cannot pay everyone, and you cannot build depth when you're paying your stars so much money. And this is sort of where the Chiefs are right now. We'll see how they try to work their way out of it.
So much to unpack there. Let's go back to Kingsley Suamataia for a second. He won the job over Wanya Morris pretty early in, before the team broke for training camp. He was running with the ones. Do you think, did we, I don't want to say we're misled, but, the fact that he won that battle so early, it makes me wonder what the Chiefs were seeing in him, and did they anticipate the vulnerabilities of Kingsley? So in the game, Trey Hendrickson's a terrific defensive end, and he had his way with Kingsley with a couple of sacks, pressures, a couple of holding penalties on Kingsley, and it got so bad, of course, they had to pull him in the fourth quarter, and Wanya Morris finished the game, and even he got a hands to the face penalty on him that pushed took a big play off the board and created the 4th and 16 scenario that the Chiefs got the pass interference call to set up the game-winning field goal. Or do we think now that Kingsley just not ready for the NFL, or not ready to be a starting left tackle in the NFL, especially for a team this good? What do we make of the fact that Kingsley, we gave him sort of a passing grade in the opening game against the Ravens, but this was definitely a failing effort in game 2. What is week 3 and beyond going to bring for Kingsley?
Well, I think the difference in training camp versus now is you're seeing a guy perform under pressure situations. And Kingsley Suamataia has the attributes to play left tackle. And I still think this situation is going to be okay in the end. But the question is how quickly, because what we saw was a guy who was not able to rebound for when things did not go well. And I pointed this out in my post-game column, but after he gets, he was fine for 2 quarters, and because things were going well. And he's playing against a 3-time Trey Hendrickson's made 3 consecutive Pro Bowls. He's a really good player. The Chiefs have a lot of these Pro Bowl players that are coming into Kansas City that they're traveling to over the course of the season. So this situation is going to pop up again, and he's going to lose battles over the course of a game. He didn't respond well to it at all. I mean, there's a clip where he just decides to try and chop Trey Hendrickson on a deep drop, passing down. This is not a quick slant play where he's trying to chop him down, and that's just losing his technique. And I talked to Kingsley after the game in the locker room, and he said, I've got to trust my coaches when they tell me to trust my technique because it's worked every time I do that. That's what he's talking about. And I also asked him about facing Trey Hendrickson, and he said it wasn't as much about Trey Hendrickson, it was my mental errors. Again, that's what he's talking about. Like, Trey Hendrickson took a left tackle out of his game, and so Andy Reid had to take him out of the game. And that's the type of stuff that we don't even know as we sit here on Tuesday whether or not he's going to be playing next week. And I think the Chiefs need to be asking themselves what's their best long-term plan, because this is a team that we saw a year ago. They didn't get their act together till late December, early January, and it turned out okay in the playoffs. And their best team to me still includes Kingsley Suamataia at his ceiling playing left tackle. But if they've got questions about his ability to get there, like, this is becoming the storyline right now of this team.
It's a great detail from Sam. I mean, this is the essence of it. Kingsley panicked. He panicked. He didn't know what to do. And because he didn't know what to do, he got so out of whack, out of his head. He just did something that's not on the playbook to do, to try to stop Trey Hendrickson after he just beating him over and over again. And listen, we all know this, guys. Like, the concern about this is there was some moments in this game where the Bengals made Mahomes look like he looked in the AFC Championship game a couple of years ago, where he panicked. He knew the pressure was coming around his left side, and he gets in his own head, and we hadn't seen that from him for a couple of years. You know what I mean? Like, he can deal with a pretty bad left tackle, but he can't deal with one where it's just a turnstile. You know what I'm saying? So that's what the Chiefs have to deal with now. But I did think that was a great detail. And this is why, I mean, you guys need to be checking out Vahe and Sam's columns after the game, because this is the type of insight you don't get anywhere else, where this is the moment. We talk about the shades of where this is, and that's the detail that shows you, like, Kingsley was beaten so badly, not just by a player. He was beaten mentally by a player and then lost himself mentally. And that's when Andy Reid had to step in. Andy Heck, the offensive line coach, had to step in and say, this guy's going off script. He's stopped doing what we've taught him to do. It's time to get Wanya Morris in there. And that was a big juncture in the game. That's a big reason why he didn't finish the game for the Chiefs, especially in a close one.
50 yards.
Go ahead, Sam.
I just want to throw in a real quick stat. The Chiefs gained 50 yards on their last 16 plays of the game. And that coincided with overlapped with what we're talking about with Kingsley.
The thing I was going to say is more of a question than an answer. Sam, you alluded to the first 2 quarters basically being fine for him. That was a pretty run-heavy first 2 quarters. I think it was 16 run plays to 10 passes in the first half, something like that. And for the first time now, I'm wondering, I mean, naturally, the Chiefs thought they saw something to try to exploit in the Bengals by running the ball so much. I think Pacheco might have tied a career high with 25 touches. I think 5 of them were were receptions. But I'm now suddenly wondering how much of that was we need to push that because we're really a little worried about how much passing we can do with that left tackle and dealing with Hendrickson. I don't know. I might just be making that up.
It's a good point, because a week ago Kingsley was much better at pass pro than he was run blocking. I was looking it up because I think he might have been the absolute worst pass block grade on Pro Football Focus this last week.
I love that you have to throw in absolute there instead of just worst.
Okay, so it looks like he was 5th worst in the league with his pass block grade. But you're right, Vahe. I mean, I actually thought as we went through the first half that would be what we would be talking about after the game was Andy Reid was willing to run the ball, and that's really hard for him to do. But it was the proper game plan against the Bengals, and I never say that the Chiefs should be taking the ball to Patrick Mahomes' hands, but the Bengals' run defense is terrible. But
Well,
now you wonder about the aspect of, do you not trust your offensive line?
They were talking about this on the broadcast, you, Tony Romo, and we talked about it in the details video with Brett Tavo when we broke down some of the Chiefs' run game effectiveness. This is a battle of patience and wits when it's the Chiefs and Bengals, because if you're Lou Anarumo, the defensive coordinator for the Bengals, you are basically saying, Chiefs, if you want to run the ball, you're going to get 7 or 8 yards of carry, because they're playing their 2 safeties way back. They don't have any defensive linemen. And it's just like, if the Chiefs can just execute that, if they can turn around and hand it off and let Creed Humphrey go work, they can get 8 yards of carry. And that's what they were doing. The problem is every time the Chiefs play the Bengals, they have a fumble, they have an interception that's unlike Patrick Mahomes, and it makes you impatient because all of a sudden you're grinding, you're getting downfield, things are going okay, but then the game shortens and then the game pressure starts to get on you. And so I feel like the Chiefs have the right game plan going into this. It's just their own mistakes. If they could ever just have a turnover-free game and a low-possession game against the Bengals, they'd probably win one going away. It's just it is a very interesting back and forth game here, because if you're Lou Anarumo, you got to be thinking, my God, am I going to leave my 2 safeties back there? But what it does is it gets in Patrick Mahomes' head. The Chiefs don't pass the ball, and then when they start passing the ball, Trey Hendrickson takes over, and things just go a little bit wacky. So very good point, Vahe. The Chiefs did run the ball, run it effectively. I agree with you, Sam. I think it was the game plan to run, and it was a good game plan to run because of how the Bengals play them. It's just the Chiefs had too many mistakes to keep that going. Otherwise, they could run the ball the whole game. Instead, because they had the turnovers, they were forced into passing. It didn't go as planned.
Chiefs and Bengals, certainly not a rivalry in any traditional sense, but my gosh, the last 6 games, the Chiefs have actually won 3 in a row against Cincinnati. Before that, the Bengals won 3 straight, all by, I think last year it was 25-17. It was the first game the Chiefs played after the Christmas Day loss to the Raiders. That 8-point spread, that one score, is the largest margin of victory in this series in the Zach Taylor, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes era. So it's been an amazingly intense little series between these two clubs.
It's a great stat, Blair.
One of the things we look forward to finding out for the Chiefs this week is who's going to start at left tackle. The other is, what are they going to do at running back? Vahe and Sam, you guys remember the Kareem Hunt time in Kansas City, that 2017 season, his rookie year, he was terrific. And then through the 10 games of 2018, fantastic. We talk about the way Isiah Pacheco runs. That was Kareem Hunt, the manner, the rough style, and gosh, he would kick defenders. He'd go up, cleat first into a defender. It was amazing. He's not that type of running back now, but it's interesting. His name came up right on Monday. I guess all was forgiven, Vahe, between Kareem Hunt and Clark Hunt.
Well, look, there's so much to this. I think though that all I can remember about Kareem Hunt right now is why he was gone, and I don't know what's happened to make you feel like, to Jesse's point earlier, using the trust concept, I don't know that you should or shouldn't feel good about what he's done since then, but I'm not really past it. I don't have anything demonstrable that tells me, okay, he should be welcomed back, because it was so brutal. I thought the sequence, what happened when he left, and frankly, the video clip was more offensive to me than the lies. And
it was the lies that got him booted from the team.
Correct. But I mean, to me personally, I guess I'm just saying that seeing that video clip was, it's the lasting impression. And look, I am someone who doesn't think, somebody just goes on the scrap heap after something's happened. But I also don't know what the impetus would be for saying, okay, we're good with him now. I don't know. I'm not saying he hasn't rehabilitated or made himself presentable. I just don't know what that is. And I don't know what they're probing and vetting to determine that they can feel good about that. And So I'm troubled by it, and it's also a little bit like never mind. I was going to make a Seinfeld reference, but let's just keep that among ourselves later. But the broader point, doesn't it also involve like what he's really going to bring to the team in terms of what he can contribute? I mean, let's just be practical on that end.
Yeah, I mean, Kareem Hunt is cooked. I mean, last year he was the worst running back in the NFL. There's a stat on Next Gen Stats that I was looking up just this morning, which is your rush yards over expectation. It tries to illustrate the way a play is blocked, with the chips in the shoulder pads from the players, how much space do you have to operate. Kareem Hunt's average carry was almost a full yard under expectation. He averaged 3 yards per carry. He was supposed to average 3.8 based on the way plays were blocked. It was the worst in the entire NFL a year ago. There are 48 running backs that qualified for that stat. He doesn't have any burst left. And there's always been, we've known this is not a Chiefs-centric thing. There's an NFL spectrum of how much you're willing to put up with the off-the-field stuff that Vahe just mentioned versus how good a player is. It is stunning to me that they think a player who is done at the level that he was here anyway is worth this risk that Vahe mentioned. And when I say risk, I mean, I don't think they thought that Kareem Hunt was a problem in their locker room. But how could you not have a problem after watching the video? And it is unsettling that this is confirmation that it was the lie and not the video that prompted his departure, because that means it's something that the organization has to get past. The organization was not the victim in this Kareem Hunt situation 5 years ago.
So, Jesse, what are the solutions at running back? If Kareem is, they brought him in, he's ostensibly meeting with the team and going. I don't know what where it goes from here, but what else are we looking at? As Carson Steele was a number 2 running back, and I'm not. And as you guys mentioned, as Sam mentioned, fumbled on in his second NFL game. There might be a trust issue there. Samaje Perine's been with the team for less than 2 weeks. Clyde Edwards-Helaire on the IR won't be eligible until the 5th game of the season, so there's 2 more games before that happens. What are the Chiefs' options now?
Yeah, I mean, Andy Reid talked about him earlier this week. He doesn't seem too overly enthusiastic about any of them, honestly. And it would obviously be Carson Steele if he didn't fumble. It's just, I think the Chiefs, it gets in your head. I mean, that's how things go, is that you trust a guy until they show you that you shouldn't trust him anymore. And so Andy Reid repeatedly has talked about Carson Steele holding the ball high and tight and not fumbling. And they hadn't seen it on film, but in that game, and it seemed like even after the fumble, he still was not securing the ball the way that they want him to on these particular plays. So, I know, listen, Sam has never been a Deneric Prince fan, but like they lost him off the practice squad. That might be sort of if they still had him, would be sort of a comforting thought, because at least he's run the ball in football games for the Chiefs and not fumbled. You know what I mean? So Samaje Perine, it seemed like he'd have a bigger role last week. They didn't really need him in those passing downs very much, but he's not ready for a full workload. And then that's not what they brought him in for anyway. So I think Sam, to speak just a little bit, Keontae Ingram is still on the practice squad. They've liked him more than I think maybe the general public has thought. And so I don't understand why you would not go with a guy that knows your playbook, that you have liked, that you've kept on your practice squad, and then you have some good feelings about in that regard. And also, I just think you've sort of got to hold your breath and see what Carson Steele does. I mean, these turnovers are killers. I just talked about it. The Chiefs had a whole game plan, and it got derailed partly because Carson Steele lost a fumble on one of his limited carries. But at a certain point, you have to trust the big sample over the small one. And the Chiefs saw over a big sample. They liked what they saw from Carson Steele, how he broke tackles, how he could be in the right spot. So at a certain point, you have to live with the decisions you made. And right now, the 2 easiest options available, because the decisions the Chiefs made in the preseason, are to go with Carson Steele and trust the big sample, or to bring up Keontae Ingram and have him play in a role because you liked him before. And so those seem like the simplest options to me. Will they do that while having Kareem Hunt come in for a visit? I guess I don't know that answer just yet.
What's interesting about this is, we've talked about each of these distinctly about left tackle and running back, but it is increasingly interesting to me to think about how each of those is a variable in the case of the other. I mean, one of their solutions to dealing with the Bengals, or at least, thinking they were exploiting something, was to minimize left tackle exposure in the passing game by running more. I mean, maybe I'm oversimplifying. Now you've got the whole trust matter in each place, though. So the thing they thought was at least maybe not a solution, but an approach with the Bengals, in a way, is one hand behind their back as they try to figure out the calculus on these two new situations.
Real quick, Vahe, too, I do want to mention this. We talk about a lot of things aren't going well for the Chiefs. Sam, you probably got it pulled up. Look at the PFF run block grades for the Chiefs offensive linemen this year. Jawan Taylor's gone up 30 points. He's done a great job. We singled him out. Joe Tooney has been great as a puller. Maybe not as good as the years past, but again, he's getting older. But Creed Humphrey has taken another step since last year. He has been dominant. Trey Smith is one of the highest rated run blocking offensive linemen in the NFL as well. So, we can say a lot of things that aren't going well for the Chiefs here, but the fact of the matter is them running the football in the first half was for real. And it was for real because those guys up front can do it, and they can do it effectively and are doing it better than they did a season ago. So that is a positive for the Chiefs moving forward as they maybe try to take some pressure off that pass game.
Okay, with the few minutes we have left, let's acknowledge some pretty good play by Chiefs in the Bengals victory. Shamari Connor had a terrific game with the fumble return for the touchdown, and a sack that came in a critical moment. It got the Chiefs the ball back at the end to put together the game-winning field goal drive. Chris Jones played a fantastic game. Doesn't show up on. I think he would credit for half a sack early. But he was the reason that the Chiefs got the fumble return for a touchdown by pressuring Burrow. Mike Dana and Turk Warden, I think, combined on the sack and the strip. So another great game for Chris Jones. And Trent McDuffie, I thought, was, for the second straight game, just elite. His defense on Jamar Chase was fantastic. All right. Did everybody watch Falcons Eagles on Monday Night Football, and impressions of the Atlanta Falcons, who pulled it out at the end? That was a heck of a drive by Kirk Cousins to win the game for Atlanta.
I didn't watch it, but I luckily on the way home from the Royals game was able to tune into Kevin Harlan, local hero.
Kevin Harlan was terrific on the call. He is an icon.
He really is. And I think we've said this before. I could listen to him do a commercial. Actually, we do hear him do commercials, and I still want to listen to it because it's
Bobside Ford.
Yes. So, but anyway, I interjected for no real reason other than to mention Kevin. Back to you.
Look, Falcons were staring 0-2, right? Staring down the barrel, and they pulled it out. So I don't know what to expect from the first road game of the season for the Chiefs. I came up with this stat. How about Patrick Mahomes has the same record as a starting quarterback on the road as he does at home? I guess that shouldn't be terribly unusual. I imagine all the great ones are close in that regard. Brady, Manning, the best of the best, Montana perhaps. But it is pretty incredible that Mahomes has been just as good. Not record-wise, his stats are better. Completion percentage, yards, touchdown passes, more on the road in as many games as he has at home. So kind of incredible about Patrick.
Can I speak to maybe one of the reasons for that?
Yeah.
He'll be in a dome in this game, and on the road he gets to play in domes every once in a while and doesn't have to deal with the cold or the wind or the snow or rain, whatever. I mean, he loves playing in those conditions too, obviously. He's kind of an old school football player that way, but we have seen some really, really, really good games from him in domes. And so there'll be perfect weather in that Atlanta game. We'll see how he performs.
We've not seen Patrick Mahomes play well in a year ago, though, were night games. Vahe and I were looking through this last night, and Patrick Mahomes played in 5 night games last year. And in 4 of those, he had a quarterback rating of 77 or worse, 4 of the 5. And the other one, he was at 90. Like, this was not a great situation for the Chiefs offense a year ago. And so I don't know if there's actually correlation with that. Obviously, typically you play better teams, and in these primetime games, you don't get, you're not playing the Raiders on Sunday Night Football. But it is an interesting stat that I wonder if there is something to it, and I don't know exactly what it would be. Falcons-wise, Blair, I mean, Kirk Cousins looks a little bit like a statue right now. Like, he's not fully recovered from an Achilles injury. And it does show up in the way that the Falcons run their offense. I mean, everything is in the pocket. There's not a lot of mobility with the quarterback, and everything's short. And the reason that's relevant is we just saw them play a team that likes to throw a lot of short passes with the Bengals. The Bengals did beat them over the top once on Jalen Watson, but this is a team that Kirk Cousins has thrown 2 passes beyond 20 yards all season in 2 games. He's only even attempted 2 of them. This is a team that's going to try and test the Chiefs in a similar passing manner that the Bengals did just last week.
You guys have to remind me to write this story when the Chiefs play a night game at Arrowhead, but Michael Lopez has the stat out there from the NFL. 10% higher drop rate in Arrowhead night games than any normal game. It's the highest mark in the NFL. Could be something with the lights. So I'd love to talk to some players in the locker room about that to see. I can even just right off the top of my head think about Chiefs-Eagles last year where MVS has the ball hit his hands and drop. Obviously, we know the Chiefs have the drop issues, but it makes me wonder in those night games if that's killing some offense as well.
One final stat, and it was kind of touched on just a moment ago, Mahomes has never lost indoors. He's never lost indoors. And he's played about 10, 12, 14 games.
Does Indy count as outdoors then? Because I think they had that roof closed last year, didn't they? Or 2 years ago. Was that open?
It was open.
It was open?
It was open.
Yeah, I remember seeing the sunlight on the field. On the field. But
that was the first time I realized it was retractable.
All right, guys.
They intentionally opened it to prevent him from playing in the dome, right? I mean,
every team should do that.
Yeah. The Falcons should retroactively make their roof retractable for this week.
Right. Great conversation as always. That's going to do it for this episode. Thanks to Randy Mason and to Monty Davis for producing, and to our SportsBeat KC staff of Jeff Rosen and Scott Chasen. Tip of the cap to Jesse Newell, Vahe, Gregorian, and Sam McDowell for their insights. And thank you for listening or viewing if you're watching us on the Stars YouTube channel. We'll be back next week on SportsBeat KC, where we talk sports in and around Kansas City.